One of our guiding principles that has been so important for us as we've done our work with NACI is the idea of listening attentively and asking questions. And I know that when I have a teacher ask a question, I don't ever think a question is too small or insignificant, especially when it comes to culture. Because when a teacher asks a question, it makes me feel like this teacher really wants to know more and wants possibly some guidance. And so that's how I feel when a teacher asks me a question. But I want to ask you, since you are the creator of the PD course, what kind of questions do you get from teachers who are taking the PD course?
That's a great question. So I think that a lot of teachers really want to know what's appropriate. I think that's the biggest question that we get is, what can I teach? What can I not teach? So I think that's the biggest question. I think other questions that they might ask is that, how can I teach this and do it in a respectful way? I think those are probably the most frequent questions we get.
And I think that sometimes we've gotten questions about very specific parts of the curriculum, whether it's a dance or a song or even a book. And they teachers want to know, is there cultural appropriation with this project I'm going to do or with this story? Is that what you have found also?
Absolutely. So, and I think those questions that you're talking about are more specific questions, but they still fall under that kind of same umbrella of the more general question, what is appropriate? What is respectful? Am I appropriating?
Yes, yes. I also want to know, as we were creating the timelines, we wanted to make sure that we were truly amplifying the Native voice. Can you tell me how the guiding principle of listening attentively and asking questions has helped us produce a wonderful timeline for each of the Native tribes?
So I think that listening, first asking, but then the listening part is really, really key to that. And I think that Native individuals have not felt heard for so many years, or if they have been heard, they have been misheard. And so listening, it's not just the asking the questions, but it's also the listening. And creating the timelines has just been an incredible experience for me. I feel like I have learned so much. So definitely when I met with some of the Native groups, it was slightly uncomfortable at first. And maybe that's because of their discomfort. They weren't trustful of us to begin with. And it took time for us to establish any kind of relationship. And I think the listening part was key to that, because they didn't at first trust us to actually listen. And then going back to another principle, they didn't trust us to honor their no if the answer was a no for some of the things that we asked about.
You're right.
So, but I think that what's been really interesting for me is that we have a large amount of silence in our conversations, where we'll ask a question and then we don't get a response for a while. We don't get a yes or a no or a specific answer. And then through like a very indigenous way of teaching, they'll tell us a story. Instead of answering directly, they tell us a story, and then through that story, we come to understand the answer to the question that we ask.
Using reflective listening and making sure that we're telling the story or what they're telling us in an authentic manner, not inserting ourselves into the story and not allowing our way of viewing life to skew what they're saying.
So there's lots of reflective questions that go into that. So once they may share a story or may share a perspective, then we reflectively question to make sure that we've clearly situated the information that we're creating in the timelines. So it's a very reflective process, and we continue to go over and over one particular piece, one event in the timeline, until we know that it is exactly worded the way that this Native group would like it worded.
And it's interesting that we started our NACI project with a question. What would you like the children of Utah to know about your cultural ways, your history, your tribe? And then we use reflective listening to help develop all of these resources that we are developing now. So questions are always invited and are welcomed. That's what we have based our projects on.
And I think one piece of advice that I would give is that no question is offensive if it's truly sincerely asked and with the intent of amplifying a Native voice and really coming to a sense of understanding. I think sometimes as teachers or individuals, we're afraid to ask a question. But if we truly are sincere, I think that the individual that we're talking with understands that.
There are some specific questions that were asked, such as, can I do this dance without having a Native American in the classroom? Or it might be, I've always done this art project, and now that I've taken the course, I'm wondering if this is an appropriate art project. I feel like it might be verging on cultural appropriation. There might be another question that's something simple like, why do you call traditional dress regalia? Why don't you call it a costume? There have been questions such as, do you call yourself a Native American or American Indian, or what is the best term to use? And so all of those questions vary, and we welcome them. If you have questions or that you would like to have answered, please email us, and we hopefully can give you some answers. And if not, we will definitely send you to people or organizations that can help you.